Tears turn to laughter, that child long ago. My soul starts to linger, it's home I know. If you catch me daydreaming now and forever, thoughts are carrying me along to that place we call home. Down that long road, throughout life we roam.
The light at Point Prim stands guard over the Gut, the entrance to Nova Scotia's Annapolis Basin, and the site of one of the oldest permanent European settlements in North America. For generations, that light has spelled home for the people of Digby, a welcome beacon for the fleet returning from the fishing grounds. This is an area that's well known for its resorts, but it's famous. Famous around the world for one other thing. Well, what do you think of when we mention Digby? Something you can get your teeth into. Of course. You're in for a treat now. We have history and we have stories, and we might even be able to come up with a new recipe or two for the world-famous Digby scallops. So sit you down for an episode on this grand old lady of Digby, Nova Scotia. Diary entry. 4 a.m. A July morning off Digby Neck. Doug Oliver is skipper of the wooden vessel Lorraine O, the oldest in the Digby fleet of 120 scallop draggers. The boat is part of the largest inshore flotilla of its kind. The crew, Doug's brother Glenn and Keith Murphy, get things in place for the first drop of the day. They hold for the signal. As the scallop drag scours the ocean floor in delineated patterns, the team stands by for the haul. Today's harvest may be good, maybe not. That's the way it goes around here. And around here, the days can be like the seascape. They vary, and many are far from typical. Benny d'Entremont, better known as Father Benny, kicks his morning off down at Tideview, a home for seniors. Acadian and Nova Scotian through and through, Father Benny is rooted to these shorelines.
I was away from the sea for a number of years, and I had to drive over the North Mountain to go back to the Bay of Fundy. So when I got too lonely in my heart, I had to drive and go and see the sea again. So the water is part of my life. I've been raised and born and raised looking at water.
The sea, the brook that runs deep through the lives of so many.
Okay, good afternoon. This is your Captain Michael. Michael is also the harbor pilot for Digby, so sit back and relax.
Rediscovering the meaning of things that are sometimes taken for granted is what Diane Casey is all about these days.
The Sarah Sea is a 6-year-old lobster-style Cape Island fishing boat. The Sarah Sea is named after our daughter, Sarah, as most people don't always look at what's in their backyard. We tend to go away on vacations, look what's in other people's backyards and not our own. And I had overlooked that until I went away and saw what other people did. And then I thought maybe what we have right here can be of interest to people who are coming from away into our area.
Way of life governed by water. Stephen Outhouse takes a look at this as a central theme for his relief carvings.
I get my ideas from what's around me, the different areas. I do places from Newfoundland, I do places from Nova Scotia, PEI, wherever the pictures that I see, photographs that somebody has, that's where they all come from. Chiseling it out, getting the angles, painting it, and I put it up there in front of me and walk around it. And are you saying anything to me? And if it is, then I title it. Sometimes the damn thing's not saying nothing, and it's just a piece of wood.
The town of Digby. Nearby to an enclave of New France, Digby is situated on an isthmus of land that the Micmacs called Oositukum, meaning ear. Named after Admiral Robert Digby, who shepherded a boatload of United Empire loyalists to these shores in 1783, today the place is 2,500 strong. Barry Moody is an historian.
The earliest settlement, of course, of this region was by the native peoples themselves, by the Micmac. The first Europeans, of which we have record at least, that arrived in this area came through the Gut in 1604. This would be Champlain, de Monts, Poutrincourt, and they were looking for a good location for their fur trading post. They sailed into this basin through this narrow entrance through the North Mountain, and were immensely impressed with the harbor, with the basin itself. In fact, it was Champlain who gave it its name, Port Royal, or Royal Harbor. He maintained that, of course, the entire French fleet could ride at anchor safely here in the basin.
Morning has broken, and the crew of the side dragger brings in the first haul.
Of course, Digby is home of the world-famous Digby scallop. We are known around the world for our scallops. You won't find just scallops on a Paris menu. You will find Digby scallop. The water is too cold here to swim in, but because the water is so cold, it gives our seafood one of the highest quality ratings in the world.
While there are some conventions, in fishing practices, for example, there are many variables that lay hidden within the seascape.
The winds of change are always with us, and in the sense that as the wind blows here, so goes our area. If the wind blows too hard, well, everybody's home. If the wind doesn't blow, well, all the fishermen are out. The Annapolis Basin is always changing, always changing.
Off to the port side of our vessel, you'll see numerous poles sticking out of the water. What that is a fishing weir. And weir fishing is
The
one of the
very
most
high
primitive
tides in the Bay of
forms
Fundy,
fishing.
of course, one of the things that really impressed the Europeans. They were not used to tides that rose that high or fell that low. They were impressed by the way of fishing of the native peoples, the building of the fish weirs, and that, of course, was a tradition carried on by the Europeans, a trick they picked up from the native people.
Well, the number one question is, what are those sticks sticking out there in the water in a circle? Well, those sticks are one of the most primitive forms of fishing, and it's called weir fishing. Now, a weir is a series of poles put into the ocean floor with netting attached to the poles. And when the tide comes in, it brings the herring. And that's what the weir's fish is, herring. Brings the herring into the corral, and as the tide recedes, the herring are trapped there.
A center for distribution, shipping, fishing, and commerce, culturally diverse, Digby's roots extend to the heart of Acadia, New England. They extend to people struggling for new beginnings.
I think in the late 20th century, it's very difficult for us to understand the kind of problems faced by a group like the Loyalists arriving here in an area with no services, virtually no governmental presence, nothing, and trying then to lay the foundation of some sort of life for themselves, to get themselves established now. Many of these people had left communities that, of course, that had been well developed for 100 years or more, and now they're arriving here into virtually a wilderness. About 10% of that migration was made up of black loyalists. Most of these were free blacks who had escaped from their southern masters, made it to British lines, and were evacuated from New York when New York was finally surrendered to the Americans in 1783. And so you have really quite a mix of people arriving here, and here we find then the foundations of the community of Digby.
The cedar shoal here is an example of a larger scallop dragger. Inside there's a workbench, and that's where the men shock the scallops out of the shells, discard the shells into the ocean, and it also protects the men from the elements.
Shocking, dragging, the beat of the day around here in season. It'll be 10 p.m. before the Loreno heads for home port. By midday, a wind has shifted off the frigid Fundy waters, and fog shrouds the tip of Digby Neck. Named after a local who was the first to circumnavigate the globe solo, the Joshua Slocum completes her hourly run. Navigating fierce currents from 28-foot tides, the ferry, along with her sister ship, the Spray, connect Long and Briar Islands to the mainland.
Two mornings ago, when you went to get your mail, the air was still and the sunshine was on the water. It was just like a mirror. You could just see everything. And one older gentleman came to me and said, this is a picture that no artist can paint. It's just so beautiful, and it changes so fast.
Clamming. Those who live along the Annapolis Basin profit from harvests of the seaweed dulse, Irish moss, mussels, and clams at each low ebb. The Bay of Fundy tidal range, up to 50 feet, is the highest in the world. It creates an ever-changing shoreline that, through artistic expression, takes on a new language, a new meaning.
Being a folk artist, we ride a very thin line of getting into the fine art type of thing. And it's very tricky. You got to stop at the simplicity of it. I get more fun when I get people to try to think of what I'm trying to say, or if they are something that I'm trying to say. It's just to think about it. They don't have to agree with it, or they don't have to, or they can disagree with it, you know. But it's just to get them thinking.
At low tide, mudflats become important feeding grounds to flocks of migrating shorebirds. At peak, flood tides through here equal in volume 2,000 times the discharge of the St. Lawrence River. Geographically and historically, Digby is tied to the seaboard of North America. One ongoing link, the regular ferry joining the community to St. John, New Brunswick, makes her way past Point Prim.
At no point between Digby, Nova Scotia and St. John, New Brunswick will she cross a deeper point in the water than she will right in the center of Digby Gut. And we will be going out.
With the buildup of urban populations in the 1800s, this area would receive the benefits. Sea journeying to the basin became supported by land travel, contributing to a heyday of summer activity.
By the mid-19th century, it was generally felt in much of North America that the railways were the wave of the future. In the 1870s, a rail link is being built between Digby and the town of Yarmouth, a bustling community at the southwestern tip of Nova Scotia. And it's not until the 1890s that what is termed locally the missing link, the railway link between Digby and Annapolis Royal, that this places Digby very strategically for the continued development, particularly of tourism, which is sort of the new wave of the 1870s, 1880s. You have sometimes up to 2,000 people a day using the railway station in Digby at the height of the tourist season. The boat from St. John lands right in downtown Digby, and the people flock off that, hundreds and hundreds of them off to the DAR station across the street. Just virtually clogs the downtown for a few hours.
Off to the port side, you'll see the Pines Resort Hotel. The Pines was built in the late
Taking inventory of the assets that make up her community has helped Diane Casey answer questions about tomorrow.
Private resort. It burned. Maybe a way to start the awareness of the potential of our area is with our youth. So I went into the classroom. I made arrangements with the teacher to take live scallops in the shell. They were given an opportunity to shock a scallop. And I think it was a good learning experience, but it was a learning experience from the heart. It was one that I think the children need to know about, because it's a sense of self that they really need when they leave high school that will carry them through whatever it is that they approach in the future. I think what I would like for the children to understand is more about themselves, more about their area, and gain a positive outlook on who they are and where they're from, and not necessarily feel that in order to make it, they've got to leave here.
Digby is very much a sea-oriented community. That dominance by the sea, I think, is very noticeable in the life of Digby town itself, the development of wharves and businesses, building of ships. One of the very strong pluses for the Atlantic region in terms of shipbuilding in the 19th century is the availability of a lot of good timber close to the water. And certainly Digby County, the entire Annapolis Basin, has a fair amount of good timber.
People living from the sea definitely have to have a strong character. They have to survive. And because they have to meet the storms and the gales might come, and so the strong character that is needed and the decision that have to be made, 1, 2, 3, 4 decision, is sort of a brings the people to be very decisive at certain times. When they are in crisis, it brings them that character of making decisions and being strong at that time.
I think anyone that has a close affinity to the sea understands that the sea is its own master. You don't control that type of life.
I find that Digby area is the most beautiful area there is. The beauty of it all. It's there to behold if you want to take time to look at it. A lot of us, we don't take too much time. We take it for granted.
Around here, the days are like the seascape, forever changing. And change, well, that's not always easy to understand. But sometimes, looking at small everyday things in novel ways can give one's understanding of a place a renewed meaning.
I don't use any table salt in the cooking of my scallops at home. I just get the sea salt out of the adults, and then I add the scallop, and we stir that around in the butter and the sea salt, and I add a little bit of shellfish seasoning. A true sight, flavor, and feel and smell of the town of Digby is out on the salt water, on a boat, shocking a scallop, tasting the delicate muscle of the scallop, and just the clean, fresh, salty sea breeze. It's wonderful. I think I've seen other lifestyles, and it's exciting to be able to turn and show the way you were brought up and the town that you knew best and the style of living that so much influenced the way you grew. And now it's a pleasure to be able to turn that back and offer it to other people to look at.
When one looks over the nearly 400 years of European occupation of this region, one, I think, is struck by the diversity of the background of the people who settled here, the black community, the Acadian community, Loyalist Digby. There is certainly some mixing and a fair amount of interaction, but many of the characteristics of these communities, drawn from their European and their North American past, I think are still very much in evidence down to the present day. When one walks the streets of Digby, one gets a fairly strong sense of where Digby has come from.
To that place we call home. Down that long road, throughout life we roam. Whenever I go,